Hello everyone, welcome to Nilanjana's exclusive English lessons. So today we are going to read the lesson and understand Atithi written by Rabindranath Tagore. Now the lesson Atithi by Tagore, it talks about a boy who is extremely fond of his own freedom and he loves to remain detached, isolated from any kind of emotional ties. The boy, Tarapada, he is symbolic of a human spirit that refuses to be confined by any kind of social expectations. So, in this lesson, we will discover that how he keeps himself isolated from all kind of relationships and how his desire for freedom shapes his destiny as a protagonist. Let's start reading the lesson. Motilal Babu, Zamindar of Kathalia, was returning home with his family by boat. One afternoon, he moved the boat near a riverside market so that their meal could be prepared. So, in this lesson, we first meet the Zamindar of Kathalia. Now, Zamindar means a rich, wealthy man who owns lands. Okay, and his name was Motilal Babu. So, he was returning home with his family by boat. In those days, transportation was not that smooth, and most of the people they often travel to cover long distances, they travel by boat. One afternoon he moved the boat near a riverside market so that their meal could be prepared. Moved means anchored. He tied the boat with the help of a rope and tried to anchor the boat near a riverside market because the reason was they wanted to prepare food. A Brahmin boy came over and asked, "Where are you going, Babu?" The boy was not more than 15 or 16. So all of a sudden, a boy who comes up and he was around 15 or 16 years old, and he tells him that, "Where are you going?" So Motilal Babu answered, "Kathalia." "Could you drop me at Nandigram on the way?" Now, while on your way to Kathalia, Nandigram was one of the locations, and the boy wanted to go to Nandigram, so he actually requested Motilal Babu that could you drop me to Nandigram. Motilal consented. Consented means he agreed. And he said, "What's your name?" he asked. "Tarapada," said the boy. Now, since the setting of the story is in Bengal, you will find a lot of names, in Bengali. So the boy named himself, he said that my name is Tarapada. In Bengali, we say Tarapada. The fair-skinned boy was beautiful to look at. So at a very first glance, Motilal Babu saw that the boy actually had a very beautiful and a very nice appearance. His smile and his large eyes had the grace of youth. He looked very graceful. His smile was very bright. His eyes gleamed. His body bare except for a stained dhoti. So he was not wearing anything. The upper torso was bare. And he was only wearing a dhoti. That also, it was a stained dhoti. Was free of any excess. So there was nothing that, was there as an attire except that dhoti, as if lovingly carved by a sculptor. But he was so perfectly good looking that as if he was like sculpted in the most perfect manner by God, or as if in a previous life he had been a young sage. His appearance closely resembled to that of a sage. Who is a sage? A sage is a person who has a lot of wisdom, who has a lot of knowledge, who's very pure. The boy almost looked like that, whose pure religious devotion had removed all grossness. Looking at him, you could understand that he was very devoted. He was a very devoted Brahmin, and there was no grossness in his appearance anywhere. He looked so pure and he looked so honest and clean from all angles. Honed him to gleaming Brahminical perfection. So basically, he was very refined in his thoughts, and that showed up on his face. His thoughts were pure, and that is the reason his face was also very clean and pure. You could understand that he was so truthful, so honest, and so clean from his thoughts. Brahminical perfection means, now in the olden days, it was believed that if you are a Brahmin, you should have some qualities that makes you a perfect Brahmin. Okay, so what are the qualities? Qualities refers to the virtues. Virtues means your honesty, your truthfulness. These are the qualities that make somebody a perfect Brahmin. A perfect Brahmin needs to have self-control. He needs to be peaceful. He needs to practice a strict life. purity. He needs to be tolerant towards others. So these were some of the ideal qualities of a Brahmin. And looking at the boy, one could feel and one could realize that, he had all the perfect qualities of a true Brahmin. Come and wash, Baba, said Motilal Babu tenderly. You can eat with us. So obviously we can understand Motilal Babu is also a very affectionate person. And he invited the boy and he said, okay, sure, come and have a bath and you can have food with us. Motilal's servant was Hindustani. He was not very good at cutting up fish. Tarapada took over and soon had the dish ready and had cooked some vegetables too with practiced skill. The cook was a Hindustani. Probably he was not that skillful in preparing and cutting fish because usually these are some of the things which a Bengali does it really well. They're very skillful in preparing all kind of fish items. So Tarapada came to the rescue. He tried to help the cook and he actually cooked up a very nice dish. He also made some vegetables with skill, with practiced skill. You can understand that he was not somebody who's very inexperienced in all doing all these things. He was quite good at this part. He then took a dip in the river and opening his bundle, produced a clean white garment and a small wooden comb. So after that, he took a bath and then he took out one of his a white garment and he combed his hair neatly. He sleeked his long hair away from his forehead and down to his neck, adjusted his glistening sacred thread, and stepped onto the boat. So you can understand that he was such a perfect disciplinarian in the sense that he took a nice cool bath and then he dressed himself up in good clothes. Good clothes obviously refers to clean clothes, which is again very necessary before we eat food. Nowadays, we have moved away from these kind of daily routines. Sometimes we often eat before taking a bath. There are many people who do that. So therefore, he had all the qualities and he was very perfectly suited to his nature. And after having a bath and wearing a clean cloth, he stepped onto the boat to have food. Motilal Babu invited him into the cabin. His wife and his 9-year-old daughter were there. His wife, Annapurna, was tenderly attracted to the boy when she saw him and wondered whose child is he. The boy had such a loving appearance that the lady, Annapurna, she was very attracted to the boy and she immediately had a motherly affection towards him. So she started wondering who is this boy, so good looking? Where has he come from? How could his mother bear to abandon him? Somebody so good looking, somebody so nice, somebody who is so well mannered. How can somebody's mother abandon a boy like this? Because looking at him, you could understand that he comes from a very good family. She placed mats for Motilal and the boy to sit on side by side. The boy was not a big eater. Annapurna felt he must be shy and tried to get him to eat this or that. But when he had finished, he would not be tempted to more. He clearly did everything according to his own wishes, but with such ease that there was nothing assertive about it. So when she placed mats for Motilal and this boy side by side to eat food, she noticed that the boy was not a very big eater. He ate everything in moderate. And she started wondering maybe the boy is feeling shy. Usually, when we start eating in front of strangers, we cannot, at times, some people are a little shy. They feel embarrassed. They cannot eat in front of strangers the way you eat at home in front of your mother. Some people may not be that comfortable in eating in front of strangers. But this boy was not shy in that way. And he ate everything according to his appetite. He finished everything according to his own wishes. So, this is something very important. He did everything according to his own wish, but with such ease that there was nothing assertive about him. But he did it with such ease, he did it with such comfort that he was not looking or he was not projecting himself to be very assertive or dominating. Sometimes people who love their freedom, they try to be very assertive. They sometimes try to be a little strong. But this boy had a very lovely demeanor and he did not look or sound assertive in any way. He was not at all shy. When everyone had eaten, Annapurna sat him next to her and asked him about his background. She did not gather much. All she could establish was that the boy had run away from home of his own volition at the age of 7 or 8. So, this is what she could gather, that the boy had run away from home on his own when he was hardly 7 or 8. Isn't your mother alive? Asked Annapurna. So, what can we understand from here about Tarapada's nature? That he had a wandering nature. Usually, when do children run away from home? Either when their childhood is very traumatic, Sometimes they are abandoned. Sometimes they are their parents are dead. Could be either of the parents are dead. So all these questions come to the mind when you understand that what made the boy abandon his home. But even when Annapurna tried to find and investigate or inquire rather, she did not find anything unusual. But one thing was very clear, that his wandering nature started in his early childhood. Now, what kind of wandering nature? Wandering nature means there are people who just loves to move around from one place to the other. As I have said in the very beginning of the lesson, that this boy represented or symbolic of a human spirit that loves to wander. Somebody who loves his own freedom and somebody who doesn't want to be confined. He doesn't want to be confined to any human relationships or any family ties. He just wants to keep his spirit restless, and he wants to keep his spirit liberated from all kinds of confinement. Isn't your mother alive? Asked Annapurna. She is, said Tarapada. Doesn't she love you? Asked Annapurna. Tarapada seemed to find this question peculiar, because if you have a loving home, if you have a loving mother, then why would you, want to run away from home? So this is what comes to Annapurna's mind. Tarapada says, why shouldn't she love me? He said, laughing. Then why did you leave her? Said Annapurna. She has 4 more sons and 3 daughters, said Tarapada. So in those days, there were, many siblings in a home. We are talking about a time where there was the fashion of a nuclear family hadn't started. So long back in those days, there were so many children at home. 4 sons, 3 daughters. Tarapada was young, so his life story was brief. But the boy was a complete original. He was his parents' 4th son and was still a baby when his father died. Despite there being so many in the house, Tarapada was the darling of all. So since he was the 4th son, that doesn't make him that, he was neglected. He was still the darling of all. Everybody doted on him, mother, brothers, sisters, and neighbors. So much so that his tutor never bait him. So in those days, usually children were home tutored. A tutor used to come to their home and teach them. Okay, and often they would be caned if they were indisciplined in any way. If they didn't prepare their lessons, the teacher would cane them, and that was one of the ways to discipline a child. And nobody took any offense in those days for that. Of course, now the story is different. You all know that any kind of corporal punishment is definitely not legal. The teacher also never bait him. Why? Because he was perfect in all ways. Everyone would have been appalled if he had. Everyone would have been shocked. Tarapada getting beatings from the teacher, from the tutor, was extremely shocking for everyone. There was no reason for him to leave. Half-starved boys who constantly stole fruit from trees and were thrashed by the owners of the trees, they never strayed from the village or their scolding mothers. So what does the author say over here? Children who don't get enough food at home. Children who are very indisciplined, they move around from one garden to the other, stealing fruits from trees, and they're often thrashed by the owners of the trees. Even they never left their village, or they never left their scolding mothers. Because why? Because deep down, every child is very attached to their home, especially they're very attached to their mothers. I'm sure all of you must have read the story, The Homecoming, if you're an ICC student. How Fatik was also so attached to the mother, though he thought that, he would have a very good life in the city. But once he moved to the city, he started missing his mother. Yeah, I'm just giving this example to relate. Yes, coming back. So even such children never strayed from the village. But this darling of everyone joined a touring Jatra troupe and left his village without a thought. But this boy, this darling, who's the darling Tarapada, he joined a touring Jatra troupe. Now, what is a Jatra troupe? Those who are not aware of a Jatra troupe, it's a troupe. A troupe is a band of musicians, singers. They perform musical drama. They keep on moving and traveling from one place to the other, and they perform these musical dramas. In those days, these were very common. So Tarapada, what did he do? He joined a touring Jatra troupe, and he left his village without a thought, without even giving a thought. He just left the village and joined this Jatra troupe. Why? Now, why? You all may have a question. Why? Because that matched his restless nature. The Jatra troupe symbolized freedom, because a Jatra troupe usually they keep on moving, they keep on traveling. It's very adventurous in one way. So Tarapada was very attracted to this moving, wandering life of the Jatra troupe, and that's how he joined them. And he left his home without a thought. Search parties went out and he was brought back. His mother pressed him to her breast and drenched him with tears. His sisters wept too. So obviously, when he was such a loving and affectionate boy, and everybody was fond of him, nobody liked the fact that he left home because everybody loved him a lot. And his mother cried, his siblings, they cried. His elder brother tried to perform his duty as guardian, but he soon abandoned his feeble attempts at discipline. So, being an elder brother, obviously somebody wanted to discipline him, but that also he gave away. He gave up and welcomed him back with open arms. Since he was a wanderer, he kept on moving from one place to the other. Obviously, elders in our home, they don't like such things, and obviously they will try to discipline you. But even his elder brother gave up and he welcomed him. Women invited him to their houses, plied him with even greater displays of affection. Even they showed a lot of affection and love for him, but he would not accept ties. Even ties of love. His stars had made him a wanderer. His stars means his destiny. Though he was showered with lots of love and affection from all corners of life, but somehow it is not that he was rude to them, but somehow he would not be confined to one place. If he saw strange boats on the river or a sannyasi from a distant region, sannyasi means a saint, under the local people tree, or if gypsies sat by the river. Gypsies are again, they are tribes who keep on moving, wandering from one place to the other. So whenever he saw them, if they were making mats or wicker baskets, his heart would stir with longing to be free. The moment he would see such things, his heart would be longing. He would have this desire, a very earnest desire to be liberated, to be free, and enjoy his freedom, to explore the outside world. He just wanted to be adventurous. He loved freedom and adventure. And after he had run away 2 or 3 times, family and villagers gave up hope of him. So initially they tried to bring him back, but it kept on happening. Every now and then he would just run away. So finally, everybody gave up on him. Again, he joined a Jatra troupe at first, but when the master of the troupe began to treat him almost as a son, and the members of the troupe, young and old, had all fallen for him. And even the people in the houses where they performed, especially the women, began to make a special fuss of him. One day, without saying a word, he disappeared and could not be found. As we have discussed earlier, that whoever came in contact with this boy, they could not stop loving him, irrespective of men or women. But the moment Tarapada realized that, they were trying to get closer to him, they were trying to, show their affection and love for him, he realized that it was time for him to move away. And similarly, in the same way, he disappeared and he could not be found. So in this case also, when he joined the Jatra troupe, the master of the troupe doted on him, loved him like a son, and even the members of the troupe were very fond of him, men as well as women. Tarapada was as wary of ties as a young fawn, and was also like a deer in his love of music. The songs of the Jatra were what had first lured him away from home. Melodies sent trembling through his veins, and rhythms made his body swing. Now, Tarapada was also very fond of music. So, how do we know that? Because, first of all, he joined a Jatra troupe. And in this para, he is compared to a young fawn. Now, young fawn is a baby deer. Now, why is he compared to a young fawn? Because he's afraid of being tied down. See, a baby deer loves to run around and play. And even if you want to control it, it would always have that kind of a free spirit. So just like a deer runs freely in the forest, he also wanted complete freedom. And he's also compared to a deer in his love of music, which means that he was affected with music very naturally. The songs of the Jatra actually attracted him away from home. That means that had made him leave his home because it fascinated him. The music fascinated him. And it fascinated him to such an extent that he couldn't resist the temptation of joining the troupe. Whenever he used to hear the melodies, it sent a trembling through his veins. Means he felt the strong emotions and he could feel the excitement inside his heart. Impelled by this passion for music, it was not long before he joined a group of Panchali singers. Panchali singers means it's again a group of people, those who sing songs which are devoted to God. It's like, it's written in your textbook, Ballads of Gods and Goddesses. It's a song it's a song which is about some god or some goddesses, their life, and their journey. So basically, it's a musical dedicated to a particular god or a goddess. So he even joined this troupe. The leader of the group carefully taught him songs and trained him to recite Pachali by heart. So the leader taught him with a lot of attention. He also began to love him as his own. Like a pet cage bird, Tarapada learned a few songs and then one morning he flew away. Imagine a bird who loves his freedom. How much you try to give him affection, how much you try to give the bird, the best food, but still the bird wants to explore the sky. The bird loves its freedom. And same thing goes with Tarapada. Finally, he joined a group of gymnasts from Jeshta to Ashar. A fair toured the district. Now, what is Jeshta and what is Ashar? These are names of the Bengali months. Jeshta is the summer season and Ashar is the rainy season. So, during the months of summer till the rainy season, there was a fair that moved around the district. Jatra troops, Pachali singers, bards, dancers, stall holders, they traveled by boat from one side to another. So during this time, during this fair, there were so many performers who used to move from one boat to another. For the second year running, this round of entertainment included a small gymnastics troupe from Calcutta. At first, Tarapada joined the stall holders, sold pan at the fair, but then his natural curiosity drew him to the wonderful skills of the gymnast and he joined their troupe. He had taught himself to play the flute very well. During the gymnastic display, he had to play Lucknow Thumris at top speed on the flute. This was his only task. So, as I said, during the months from the summer till the rainy season, there was a fair, and there were many performers like Jatra, actors, there were singers, dancers, and they all traveled together by boat from one place to the other. Why? Because they wanted to entertain the people. Now, among this group, there was a small group of gymnasts from Calcutta, and they attracted crowd by showing their physical skills. Now, Tarapada initially worked with the stall holders and he sold pan. Like pan is betel leaf. Why did he do so? Because obviously he also had to earn his living. But as we know that he had an adventurous spirit, it could not keep him confined to one place. So, due to his curiosity, he was attracted to the wonderful skills of the gymnast and he joined their troupe. So, what did he do over there? He learned to play the flute very well. We already know that he was fond of music. And somebody who's fond of music will always try to explore the various forms of music, because that's also an art. So he was very good at playing the flute. He learned it well. And during the gymnastic display, he had to play the Lucknow Thumris. Lucknow Thumris, it's a kind of a song. It has a very fast paced tune. Okay, those who are into classical music, they will know what's a thumri. It's a particular genre of classical music, and he used to play that on the flute. This was his only task. It was from this troupe that he had most recently absconded. He had heard that the zamindars at Nandigram had founded on a lavish scale an amateur jatra group. So he tied up his bundle and headed for the place, meeting Motilal Babu on the way. So all this while we were actually uh, learning about his background, where he was all these years, what did he do, and probably he was sharing it with Motilal Babu and Annapurna Devi. So this is how we also come to know as readers what was his past and what he has been doing. So it was from this gymnast troupe that he had been absconding, means he left that also, and now he was about to reach Nandigram because he heard that there was an amateur. Amateur means a beginner, not a professional. There was an amateur Jatra group, so he wanted to join that, and therefore he was on his way to Nandigram, and that's how he meets Motilal Babu on the way. Despite these connections with various groups, his nature had not been corrupted by any. He was deep down entirely detached and free. But yes, one thing is very clear, that he was drawn towards movement, he was drawn towards adventure, but he was not being corrupt, or he was not stained in any way. He remained pure as a white dove. His wings never had the stain, though he dipped in at times, as a dove, it gets dipped in the murky waters, but the purity, the goodness, of the dove doesn't change, in the same way, the author has portrayed Tarapada's character. Because when you are moving around in so many places, obviously it's not only the good things that you see, the world is filled with good as well as the bad things, right? So Tarapada also must have come across bad things, but that never, corrupted him in any way. He never became corrupt. He never lost his goodness. That's more important. Despite, the foul language he had heard, the dreadful sights he had seen had not fixed themselves in his mind. They passed him by. So he came close to it, but it never touched him. He remained unbound by any kind of habit or custom. He swam in the murky waters of the world. Murky means the dark, the dirty, with pure white wings like a swan. However, many times his curiosity made him dive in. His wings could not be soaked or soiled. So, out of curiosity, he must have tried and tested various things. But that doesn't make him a bad person or a stained person. His wings never got soiled. There was a pure and natural innocence in this runaway boy's expression. So much so that the worldly wise Motilal Babu invited him without doubt or question and with great tenderness. So, in spite of knowing his background, Motilal Babu, who was a wise person, he was a worldly wise person because obviously he was a zamindar, he had experience, he dealt with people, but he also understood that there was nothing suspicious about this boy, and without any doubt or question, he accepted him and loved his company. This is going to be a long video, so I hope all of you are enjoying it. Those who are new to the channel, this is Nilanjana's exclusive English lessons. Please support and subscribe to the channel. If you want more content like this, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you all want a break, you all can take a break and again come back. In the afternoon, the boat set sail. Annapurna continued to ask the boy kind questions about his home and family. He answered laconically and then went out on deck to escape. So Annapurna was more curious about the boy's background, and she continued to ask the boy kind questions. Obviously, she was not being too inquisitive. Very kindly, she tried to find out the background of the boy, more about his home and family, but he answered everything laconically, means in a very reserved way. He answered the questions with brevity. He did not speak much, but whatever she could gather, this was all that she found out. Finally, the boy went out on deck to escape. Deck is the platform of the boat, the open area of the boat, and that's where the boy finally went out. Tarapada took refuge on the roof of the boat in the shade of the sail. So he took refuge, means that's where he loved to spend more time, on the roof of the boat, because that is one of the reason he could connect with nature, because it was quite open and it was just below the blue sky. Sloping pastures, flooded jute fields, green, rippling late autumn paddy, narrow paths leading from the ghats, and villages shaded by encircling foliage came one by one into view. The author describes the beautiful scenery. On the way to Nandigram, this was what one could witness from the boat. Sloping pastures. Pastures means open lands, farmlands, flooded jute fields. Jute grows very well in floodplains. Green, rippling late autumn paddy. Late autumn paddy suggests that the crops are mature. They are ready for harvest. Now, why rippling? Because of the wind that blows, and it caused this rippling effect in the paddy field. Narrow paths leading from the ghats and villages shaded by encircling foliage. Foliage is again greenery. So there's a lot of greenery all around, and beautiful fields, beautiful farmlands was seen while one traveled on the boat. To this water, earth, and sky, this movement of life and sound, these varied levels and vast vistas. Vast vistas means a wide landscape. To this huge, immovable, mute, unblinking natural world, the boy was intimately linked. Tarapada was very intimately linked with this beautiful natural world, the wide landscape, the sky, the unblinking natural world. Like, the world was so beautiful in his eyes that probably one would forget to even blink. As he sat, he soon got talking with the helmsman and the oarsman. Now, helmsman is the man who steers the boat. Steers means who navigates the direction, and oarsmen are the people, those who row the boat. Sometimes he took the oars and punted the boat himself. Punted is rowed. When the helmsman needed a smoke, he would take the tiller. Tiller is the wheel which helps to navigate the boat ahead. When the sail needed to be turned, he helped skillfully. So there was not a single work which he felt that he should not do. That means he wanted to help every single person out. Whenever anybody needed any help, Tarapada was the first one to extend his hand. And not only that, he loved doing that job. Just before dusk, Annapurna called Tarapada and asked, "What do you like to eat at night?" "Whatever I get," said Tarapada. "I don't eat every day." This shows that he was not very interested with food. Whatever he got, he would eat and he would enjoy the food in that way. He was not a passionate, foodie, you can call somebody who's very whimsical and somebody who's very particular about the kind of food which is given. I want this, I want that. No. He said, "Whatever I get, I'm going to eat it." She felt disturbed by this beautiful Brahmin boy's indifference to her hospitality. She longed to feed, clothe, and give succor to him. So she, as a motherly figure, wanted to feed this boy, wanted to take care of him. She wanted to make this boy feel very nice and comfortable under her hospitality. But this boy was like very indifferent. That doesn't make him rude, but he was not ready to, come very close in terms of affection and love. He remained detached in his own way. But she could not discover how to please him. She ostentatiously sent her servants to buy milk and sweets. So these are some of the things which she wanted to show her affection on Tarapada, buying milk, buying nice sweets. So Tarapada ate the sweets willingly enough, but he would not touch the milk. Even the taciturn means reserved, Motilal urged him to drink, but he simply replied, "I don't like it." 3 days passed. Tarapada expertly joined in everything, from the cooking and shopping to the sailing of the boat. The boat continued to sail. We know where is the boat moving forward, moving towards Nandigram. Anything he saw interested him, any work that he did absorbed him. His sight, his hands, and his mind were ever active, like nature herself. He was always serene and detached, yet always busy. People usually dwell in a fixed place, but Tarapada was like a joyous wave on life's unending stream. Past or future meant nothing. Moving forward was the only thing that mattered. So, despite all the people around him, Tarapada lived his life in his own way, and he was like a joyous wave on life's unending stream. a, like a wave continues to flow, right? A wave is not stagnant. It's always in movement. So Tarapada's life was almost very similar to a joyous wave. And for him, past or future did not make any difference. His only intention was to move forward. Like how a wave, when it moves forward, similarly, Tarapada's intention or goal in life was only to go with the wave, go with the flow. By mixing with various groups, he had learned all sorts of delightful accomplishments. Things were stamped on his mind with astonishing ease, unclouded as it was by any kind of worry. He knew Pachali, folk tales, kirtan, and long pieces from yatras. Motilal Babu habitually read the Ramayana to his wife and daughter. One evening, he had just got to the story of Kush and love when Tarapada, unable to restrain himself, came down from the roof of the boat and said, "Put the book away. I know a song about Kush and love. Listen." So while Motilal Babu was narrating the stories of episodes from Ramayana, from the roof of the boat, Tarapada came down from the roof of the boat and he said, "Listen to my song." And he started singing. He began a Pachali. Pachali, as I said, is a musical verse which narrates the stories of gods and goddesses. The verse, "Sweet as a flute," flowed on swiftly. The helmsman, oarsman came and peered through the door of the cabin as dusk fell. A stream of laughter, pathos, music spread through the evening air. The banks became alert. People in passing boats were lured for a moment and strained their ears to listen. So it was such a melodious and a musical song that everybody around was immediately drawn to this music. When the Pachali had finished, everyone sighed deeply, wishing it would last forever. The tearful Annapurna longed to take the boy and press him to her breast and bury her face in his hair. Motilal Babu thought, if I could somehow keep this boy, he would make up for my having no son. The little girl, Charu Shashi, though, was full of envy and jealousy. So, looking at Tarapada, spending time with Tarapada, every moment was so precious for Annapurna as well as Motilal, because deep down in his heart, probably they missed having a son. And Tarapada, slowly and slowly, he was taking that place in their heart. But there was one thing in this entire story. Now we come across a character, the girl called Charu Shashi, who was full of envy and she was filled with jealousy because all this while she was the only a recipient of the parents' love and affection. But now, all of a sudden, when Tarapada comes and he starts stealing the show, that's when she gets insecure and she becomes very jealous. She was her parents' only child, sole claimant on their affection. There was no end to her willfulness and obstinacy. Now, this is the character of Charushashi. What kind of a girl was she? She was the sole claimant. Like, she demanded their love and affection all alone because there was nobody else. Usually, we see such kind of feelings, such kind of emotions at times with a child who does not have any siblings. They are usually a little stubborn at times. Okay, maybe I'm not right because I'm just giving you a random opinion. Let me know what you all think about this. Usually in a families, when children have siblings, they are more considerate, and I feel that they are more adjusting. Could be my personal opinion. But yes, Charushashi was also very much like this. She was very filled with obstinacy, means stubborn, and willfulness means she wanted to have her own way every time. She wanted to have whatever she felt, her own opinions about food, clothes, hairstyle, but there was no consistency in them. Now, this is what is known as tantrums. Tantrums means sometimes you want this, sometimes you want that. There's no consistency in what you like. Whenever she was invited out, her mother was terrified that she would make impossible demands over dress. You must have seen, usually girls, sometimes they are very demanding about their dress, their hairstyle, and they want it in their way. If a hairstyle displeased her to do, and redo it made no difference and merely led to a tantrum. How much you try to pacify her, how much you try to please her, but the tantrums would, not just simply go. She was like this with everything. But if she was in a good mood, she was amenable to anything and would show excessive love for her mother, hugging her, kissing her, laughing in an unbalanced way. The girl was a puzzle. So it was indeed a puzzle to understand the girl, because sometimes when she was in a good mood, she was very amenable, means she was quite cooperative in everything. And that time, her love had no bounds. She would kiss, hug her mother, and show her excessive affection. Sometimes she would laugh like that, out of this excessive love and emotion. And it was so difficult to understand this girl. But now her volatile feelings began to concentrate in fierce animosity towards Tarapada, and she caused exceptional trouble to her parents. So now, when she saw that Tarapada was becoming so close to her parents, she started showing her animosity, means hatred, and that caused a lot of trouble to her parents. What did she do? Some of the instances: at meals she scowled and pushed her plate away. Out of anger, she scowled. This is a showing off. This is an expression of anger. She just refused to eat. How a small child, at times refused to eat. She would complain about the cooking. She would slap the maid and object to everything. So her tantrums had no end. She would be very rude with people around, slap the maid, and try to have her own way. So obviously, very ill-mannered girl. The more that Tarapada's accomplishments impressed her and others, the more angry she became. So Tarapada was becoming dearer to the people around him, and that increased her anger day by day. She would not admit that he had any virtues at all. Undeniable evidence of them made her even more critical. She would always badmouth about this boy. He would say, "Oh, he's good for nothing." And when people denied it, that made her all the more angry. On the night that Tarapada sang about Kush and love, Annapurna thought wild animals can be tamed by music, so perhaps my daughter will soften. Now, when you have a daughter like this, sometimes it becomes a cause of worry for the mother. And Annapurna knew that the daughter was very wild, ill mannered, having a lot of tantrums, having mood swings. So she wondered that if probably with this music she could be tamed, because my daughter is really wild. Maybe this is going to melt my daughter's heart. "How did you like it, Charu?" she asked. She gave no answer, merely tossed her head, implying, "I didn't like it at all, and shall never like it." Realizing that Charu was jealous, her mother stopped showing affection for Tarapada in front of her. Now, poor woman, what would she do? When she realized that her daughter was increasingly becoming jealous, she stopped showing her affection. She started limiting her feelings towards Tarapada. She did not show it. After dark, when Charu had gone to bed after eating early, Annapurna would sit by the door of the cabin, and Motilal Babu and Tarapada would sit outside. This is how they used to spend the evenings. And at Annapurna's request, Tarapada would sing. With his singing, the goddess of the sleeping, darkened homes on the bank would sink into a trance. He had such a melodious and beautiful voice that his music almost caused like a trance like atmosphere in the nearby areas. Imagine, this is a very picturesque scenery. And there is darkness all around, the boat sailing quietly in the middle of the river, and everywhere around there is complete stillness, darkness, a complete village setting of rural Bengal. And when Tarapada used to sing in the evenings, it would create the a trance-like setting. It is as if the goddess of the sleeping, darkened homes would also sink into a trance. And Annapurna's heart swelled with love and appreciation. But Charu would get up and shout tearfully and angry. Charu would couldn't tolerate, because when she realized that, oh, I'm sleeping and my mother is listening to this boy's song and everybody's loving this boy, she would be filled with hatred, envy, and jealousy. Mother, I can't get to sleep with this noise. She found it quite unbearable to be sent to bed on her own while her parents sat and listened to Tarapada singing. So for her, I am going to sleep alone and my parents would listen to his singing. No, I'm not going to allow that. And she tried her best to keep her mother and father away from Tarapada in all ways. The natural fierceness of this fiery black eyed girl fascinated Tarapada. He would tell her stories, sing her songs, play her the flute, make great efforts to win her round, but with no success at all. Now, when Tarapada noticed this girl's tantrums, it actually became an object of interest for him also. He also probably started becoming curious more about the girl, because he saw that, she was naturally very fierce, she was naturally very angry all the time, and that created some interest in Tarapada. Secretly and silently, probably he also started liking this girl. So, what he would do, he would tell her stories, sing her songs, and play the flute. And he made great efforts to win her, to pacify her, but somehow he was not successful. Only in the afternoons, when he bathed in the swollen river, sporting his fair, pure body in a swimming display worthy of a young water god, only then could she not help being attracted just a little bit. So you can imagine, this kind of affection slowly developing in this girl. You can understand that they are teenagers, and this is when, you start developing feelings for the opposite gender. And when, though she hated Tarapada superficially, she was very jealous of this boy. She couldn't tolerate him. She always fought with him. But she was also getting physically attracted to this boy, especially when he used to swim. And she would only watch him then because he looked very graceful. But she didn't reveal her interest to anyone. And born actress that she was, now born actress means obviously, with all her tantrums and her mood swings, she carried on knitting a woolen scarf with apparent indifference to Tarapada's water sports. Though she secretly admired Tarapada while he came out from the river after the swim, she kept on knitting the woolen scarf as if to show that she is not even looking at him. But yes, she also secretly admired him. Tanapadan took no notice of Nandigram when they passed it. Now, we know that the boat was sailing towards Nandigram, but then, even when Nandigram came, Tarapada also took no notice. Why? Because slowly and slowly he was also getting used to this kind of a life. He was also enjoying the company of Motilal. He was also enjoying the affection, the hospitality of Annapurna, because she was a very nice, compassionate, motherly figure. The large boat, sometimes with its sails up, sometimes towed, proceeded slowly on, down rivers and tributaries, and the days of the passengers too flowed with a soft and easy pace through the peace and beauty of the scene. So the passengers, those who traveled in the boat, they also enjoyed this very leisurely journey. No one was in any kind of hurry. Long afternoons were spent bathing and eating, and as soon as dusk fell, dusk is evening, the boat was moored at a village ghat by trees buzzing with crickets and aglow with fireflies. So this was the morning. Mornings they would sail in the river, crossing villages, crossing various locations, all greenery around. And when evenings came, they used to anchor the boat and they used to wait for the next morning. And during the dusk time, they would eat, they would take rest, and it was all filled with the natural world around, with the fireflies, with the sound of the crickets, and so on. After about 10 days of this, the boat finally arrived at Kathalia. We know that the boat was actually traveling to, this was a destination, to Kathalia. Ponies and a palanquin were sent from the house to receive the zamindar. So a zamindar is almost like a mini king. He has great glory, and the people in his village, they look up to him just like a king. So he was given a very warm and a grand welcome. They sent ponies, a palanquin. You know what's a palanquin? A palanquin is a one of the means of transport which was used in those days, and usually often the women of the household, they used to travel in palanquins. It would be carried by men. So the palanquin was sent from the house to receive the zamindar. A guard of honor with bamboo lathis fired rounds of blanks raucously, echoed by the village crows. Raucously means loud and harsh noise, because when they were with this sound, there was a lot of loud and harsh noise by the village crows. Meanwhile, Tarapada slipped off the boat and quickly looked round the village, calling one villager Dada, another Kura, another Didi, another Masi. These are like colloquial terms used for addressing someone. Dada is like a brother, we say. Kuro is like an uncle. Didi and Masi, aunt and sister. Didi is sister and Masi is aunt. He established friendly relations with everyone in a couple of hours. We know that he was a darling for everyone. So he mingled with everybody without any effort, and everybody started liking his company. Because he had no normal ties, he would get to know people with amazing ease and speed. Within a few days, he had won all hearts. As usual, within a few days, he became everybody's favorite. Everybody loved to spend time with him, and everybody started loving him. Because he was not related to anyone in terms of blood relation, probably that is the reason he made relations with a lot of ease and comfort. He mixed with everyone on equal terms. This is also very special. Usually, when we mingle with people, sometimes people are very close. Sometimes we are not very comfortable with certain people. But for him, he mingled with everyone in the same way. He was unconventional, yet able to adapt any situation or work. With boys, he was a boy, yet somehow separate and special. With older people, he was not a boy, yet not too precocious either. Precocious means mature, somebody who is very mature at an early age. With herders, he was a herder. People who tends to cattle, people who tends to livestock, domesticated cattle. With them, he was just like them. He was a herder. At the same time, he was a Brahmin. He joined in with things as if used to them all his life. He would be chatting in the sweet shop. The sweet maker would say, "Could you mind the shop for a while? I shan't be long." Cool as a cucumber, Tarapada sat there, keeping the flies of the sweetmeats with a leaf. He could even make sweets himself, knew something of weaving, and was not completely ignorant of how to turn a potter's wheel. So he is indeed a marvelous character. You can see he's a unique character as created by Tagore, a character who can fit into any role without any discomfort. He can sit in a sweet shop helping the sweet seller. He can also start weaving. So whenever he got a chance to fit into any role with the villagers, he did that with ease. Tarapada reigned. Reigned means, of course, his supremacy could be understood. Like he had an absolute control over the entire village. But this control is not with power. This control is with his love and his affection, with his sweet nature. That's how that there are two kinds of control. One is when you do with your power, when you do with your anger, when you do with being very assertive. But as we know, Tarapada was never assertive from the very beginning. He reigned over the entire village, but that was only with his sweet and loving nature. There was just one young girl whose hatred he simply could not overcome. And we know who was that? Charushashi. Perhaps it was because this girl so fiercely wished him to leave that he stayed on so long. But Charushashi now proved how hard it is to fathom even a juvenile female mind. But now, the change in Charushashi's character makes us realize that it is indeed very difficult to ascertain, to difficult to understand the complexities of a young female mind. Why? Because apparently she showed the hatred, but probably she also had started admiring Tarapada. Bamun Thakuran's daughter, Shonamani, had been widowed at the age of 5. She was Charu's playmate. So, as we had discussed, the story is set at a time when child marriage was prevalent. And during those days, you know that when a girl got married at a very early age, they also got widowed at a very early age. And that was indeed a very harsh way of living, because the girl who was a widow at the age of 5, I imagine, like, such a pathetic thing, because she had to live the austere life of a widow, because in those days widows were made to follow a very strict lifestyle. They kept themselves away from all kinds of luxuries, good food, and so on. Okay, because that's how the society wanted them to live. Of course, with a lot of changes and with a lot of progress in our society, we have come out of it. But yes, it's also a reminder of the past. So this girl, Shona Mani, at the age of 5, she was a widow, and she was Charu's playmate. She used to play with Charu. She had been ill for a while and had not been able to go out to see her friend. When she recovered and came to see her again, a rift between them came about for almost no reason. Now, though Shonamani and Charu were playmates, but then there was a rift that developed. Now, the rift is, of course, related to Tarapada, because he was like a bone of contention between these two girls. Charu had been speaking at length about Tarapada. She hoped by saying what a precious asset he was to astonish and intrigue her friend. Now, Charu, what she was doing, she wanted to boast about Tarapada. Though she hated Tarapada superficially, in front of her friend, she was like, boasting about him. You know what? Tarapada can sing, he's a great asset to our family, and all that. And by this, she thought that that is going to intrigue, that is going to create some interest in her friend, and it would fill her friend with awe. But what happened is something different. But when she discovered he was known to Shonamani, that he called Mamuthakar and Mashi, and that Shonamani called him Dada, when she heard that he not only treated mother and daughter to kirtan tunes on his flute, but had, at Shonamani's request, made her a bamboo flute, that he picked her fruits from high branches and flowers from thorny ones, when she heard all this, darts of fire stabbed her. Little did she know that Tarapada was already close to Shonamani. And these are the instances that we come to know that how he also became close to their family. Number one, he called Shonamani's mother Masi, and Shonamani addressed him as Dada. Not only that, he often sang kirtan tunes for them. He also made her a bamboo flute when Shonamani requested her. Made her means, of course, with the help of a branch or something, with a bamboo. He made a bamboo flute for her. He also bought fruits for her from high branches. And when Charu heard all these things, she was filled with all kinds of, intense emotions. Darts of fire stabbed her. Darts of fire means what? Emotional, intensity in all ways. Could be jealousy, anger, fear. Like, she was overwhelmed. She couldn't tolerate. She thought that Tarapata was her personal asset, and she couldn't bear to share Tarapada with someone else. She had thought of Tarapada as their Tarapada, guarded closely so that ordinary people might glimpse him, yet never be able to grasp him. They would admire his beauty and talents from a distance, and Charushashi's family would gain glory thereby. So she thought that Tarapada was like an asset for her family. People would admire him from a distance, but nobody would get close to him like their family. It was as if their family's absolute rights on Tarapada. So this is a very childish behavior. And we know, of course, she is indeed a child. She's a very young girl, and probably coming to terms with feelings about love and admiration for the opposite gender. Why should Shoshanamani have such easy contact with this singular, divinely favored Brahmin boy? Why would Shonamani come close to Tarapada? If Charu's family had not taken him in, had not looked after him so, how would Shonamani ever have seen him? Shonamani's Dada, indeed, she burned all over at the thought. So she was so jealous, and she thought that how y'all got Tarapada? We actually gave him a shelter. We brought him along with us, and now you're calling him Dada and all that. Why was the Charu, who had tried to strike the boy down with arrows of hatred, so anxious to claim sole rights over him? Understand this, who will? So this is, this kind of a statement is given by the author for us to understand that what kind of feeling was actually shown by Charu. Why? Once she's filled with hatred, and on the other hand, she also wants to have her absolute rights over him. So basically, it's a growing affection, silent affection that she had for the boy. So beneath this layer of hatred that she showed, she was developing soft feelings for Tarapada. Later that day, Charu had a serious rift with Shonamani over another trivial matter. Again, with a small matter, petty issue, she again fought with Shonamani. Now, what did she do? She marched into Tarapada's room, found his beloved flute. Tarapada was very fond of playing the flute. We have seen in many instances of the story, and callously jumped and stamped on it. She broke the flute. Out of hatred and anger, she jumped, stamped on the flute, and broke it into pieces. She was still doing so when Tarapada came in. He was amazed by the image of destruction that the girl presented. Charu, why are you smashing my flute? He asked. I want to smash it, and I'm going to smash it, shouted Charu with red eyes and flushed face, filled with anger, filled with emotions. Her face was red. And she said, yes, I'm going to break it. I'm going to break it and smash it again and again. And stamping unnecessarily on the already smashed flute, she burst into loud sobs and ran from the room. So you can understand this is such an emotional moment, intense emotional moment. Deep down, probably she starts liking this boy. She can't say it because probably she's also a little egoistic because she had already showed hatred. And we already know her nature, that she is the only daughter in the house, probably a little more pampered, probably a little more having a lot of tantrums. So therefore, she couldn't come to terms with the fact to show her affection, but at the same time, she was filled with a lot of anger and jealousy. Tarapada picked up the pieces, turned them this way and that, but it was useless. Obviously, Tarapada was hurt. It was his favorite flute. He tried to mend it, but it was useless. To wreak destruction on his old, innocent flute was so absurd that he burst out laughing. At one point, he found out that, oh, my flute is already such an old one, innocent one. Like, why is she showing her anger on my flute? Charushashi intrigued him more every day. He also started becoming quite curious about this girl, and he also treated her with interest. He was also intrigued by the English illustrated books in Motilal Babu's library. Tarapada had considerable knowledge of the world, but he could not enter the world of these pictures at all. He tried to do so in his imagination but found no satisfaction in this. Seeing his interest in these books, Motilal said one day, would you like to learn English? So Tarapada was also a very inquisitive learner because, as we have seen, he picks up everything that comes along his way. So he also was quite interested with the books that Motilal had in his library. And looking at his interest, Motilal actually said that, would you like to learn English? You will understand these pictures then? I would like to learn, he replied at once. So Tarapada said that yes, I would like to learn. Motilal Babu happily engaged the headmaster of the village secondary school, Ramratan Babu, to teach the boy English each evening. Motilal was already treating him like a son because there was nothing to hate this boy. Slowly, slowly, he occupied a very precious place in their heart. So Motilal showered his love and affection in every way. He kept a headmaster of the village school, Ramratan Babu, and asked him to give him lessons every evening. Now, when Tarapada's interest in English developed, Charu Shashi, she also wanted to learn English. Tarapada set about learning with great concentration and retention. With a lot of focus, he enjoyed his lessons. It released him into a hitherto inaccessible realm, unconnected with his former world. Now, this love for learning English exposed him to another world which he was not introduced before. All this while, his world was very close to nature, the rural Bengal, but this was like a different world altogether. And he loved every bit of it. The local people saw no more of him at dusk when he went to the empty riverside to pace swiftly up and down, reciting his lessons. His boyish devotees mournfully watched from a distance. They dared not disturb his studies. So he absolutely devoted himself to these lessons. And his devotees, people who loved to spend time with him, they watched him and they also did not want to disturb him. Charu too did not see much of him now. Formerly, Tarapada ate in the women's quarters. In those days, the women usually spend time in a designated area of the house, and men also they stayed or spent time in another area of the house. Because, as I said, we're talking about a time when things were different, when women stayed more indoors and they were not as progressive as they are now. So Tarapada, he usually ate the food in the women's quarters under Annapurna's loving gaze. But because this could take a long time, he asked Motilal to arrange for him to eat outside then. Annapurna was hurt by this and objected, but Motilal was so pleased by Tarapada's keenness to learn that he agreed to the new arrangement. So slowly we can see that Tarapada found another interest and he devoted himself to that um area completely. And he said that no, I don't want to eat inside. I actually want to spend time more with my lessons. And he had a new arrangement altogether. Charu now insisted that she too wanted to learn English. Why? Because she felt that Tarapada was like, moving away from her. She was seeing less of him every day because Tarapada was interested more in the lessons. At first, her parents were amused by their wayward daughter's new idea, lovingly laughed at it, but its absurdity was soon washed away by tears. Now, all of a sudden, this girl said, I also want to learn English. Already, we know that every second, she had a new interest and she wanted things in her own way. So they thought it's a tantrum, but then the way she was hell bent on learning, finally the parents had to give in. Doting parents that they were forced to give in, and she started to study alongside Tarapada with the same tutor. Of course, the main reason is she wanted to see more of Tarapada, wanted to spend more time with him, and that was not happening. So this was a new arrangement that she finally managed to. Study, however, was alien to her restless nature. She was not into studies. She was very restless. She was, more interested in other things. She learned nothing herself. So what did she do? She merely disrupted Tarapada's learning. She disturbed him all the time. She fell far behind, couldn't learn anything by heart, but couldn't bear to be behind. She wanted to compete with him. If Tarapada overtook her and moved on to a new lesson, she was furious and burst into tears. When he finished an old book and bought a new one, she had to buy the new book too. So whatever he did, she also wanted to do the same. In his spare time, he would sit in his room learning and writing his lessons. The jealous girl couldn't stand this. She would secretly come, pour ink on his exercise book, steal his pen, even tear from the book the passage he had been said to learn. She disturbed him in all ways possible, tried to stop his learning, poured ink on his book, in those days I'm talking about ink which was the liquid ink. Okay, so if you pour ink, obviously everything gets spoiled. And she also used to tear the pages from the book he wanted to learn. Why was she doing this? Can anyone write in the comments? She was obviously trying to get attention. What do you think? Do let me know. Tarapada bore most of this. Bore means he tolerated with amusement. If she went too far, he slapped her, but he was quite unable to control her. Even Tarapada sometimes got angry. Sometimes he was like amused. Sometimes he would slap her. But yes, nothing was possible to control her. She was in her own way. A chance occurrence saved him. One day, truly annoyed, he tore up his ink spilled exercise book and sat gloomily. So one day he was like, very irritated. He tore up the book because it was already spilled with ink. And he was sitting there in a very gloomy, dull way, very sad. Charu came to the door and prepared herself for a beating. But nothing happened. Prepared herself for it, she was ready. She knew that Tarapada would beat her. Now we are talking about children, youngsters who are very young, like playmates, you can say. So how they treated each other is with, of course, beating. Like if anybody got angry with one another, they started beating each other. But nothing happened. Tarapada went on sitting in silence. The girl went in and out of the room. Several times she came so close that Tarapada could, if he had wished, easily have thwacked her on the back. She came so close to him that if Tarapada wanted, she could have easily, given her nicely. But he did not do that and remained solemn. Solemn is serious. The girl was in a quandary. Quandary means like state of confusion. She's trying to understand, ascertain the situation. What's wrong with this boy? Why isn't he reacting? Usually, such characters like Charu, they are actually attention seekers. In today's terminology, this is what we say. They try to get the attention, and for getting the attention, they will do everything. How to ask for forgiveness was something she had never learned. She knew that she was wrong, but then her ego was, too much to ask forgiveness. She has never learned it. She has never asked forgiveness from anyone because she was very pampered. Yet she was extremely anxious for forgiveness. Yet she wanted Tarapada to forgive her. Finally, seeing no other way, she took a piece of the torn exercise book, sat down next to Tarapada, and wrote in large round letters, "I will never pour ink on your exercise book again." She then made elaborate efforts to attract his attention. See what I told you? Wanted his attention. At this, Tarapada could not contain himself anymore, and he burst out laughing. The girl dashed from the room, overcome with shame and anger. She was very embarrassed because she had asked for forgiveness, though she didn't want to. And when Tarapada started laughing, she was very embarrassed and she rushed out. Only if she had been able to expunge from all time the paper on which she had humbled herself would her fury have been eased. Now, when she wrote that I'm not going to pour ink on this on your book again, she just wanted to come out of that action. She wanted to undo the action basically. Expunge is remove. She wanted to remove from all the time the paper on which she had humbled herself. Humbled means obviously when you're asking forgiveness, you are coming down, you are showing your humility, you are showing that you are sorry for whatever you have done. That's coming down on your ego, your pride, your vanity. And probably this is what she wanted to undo this. During this period, Shonamani had once or twice, with her heart in her mouth, lurked outside the lesson room. Heart in her mouth means she was also extremely scared, nervous, because she was scared of Charu's temper. And she would, secretly watch everything from outside. She was close to her friend Charu in most matters, but with regard to Tarapada, she feared and distrusted her. At moments when Charu was in the women's quarters, she would stand timidly outside Tarapada's door. He would look up from his book and say tenderly, "What is it, Shona? What's up? How is Masi?" Shonamani would say, "You haven't been to see us for a long." So Shonamani also wanted to talk to Tarapada, but she was so scared of Charu. She knew that if Charu comes to know that Shonamani is trying to talk and spend time with, Tarapada, she was scared of Charu's anger and Charu's temper. Mother wishes you would sometime. She has backache, so she can't come to you. So, in this way, very secretly, she used to talk to Tarapada once in a while. Charu would perhaps now appear. Shonamani was flustered, means embarrassed. She felt like a thief. Charu would scowl and shriek at her. "Well, Shona, coming to disturb our studies? I'll tell my father." As if she herself was Tarapada's guardian, whose sole object was to watch him day and night in case his studies were disturbed. But God was not unaware of what her actual motive was in coming to Tarapada's room at this odd time, and Tarapada also knew it well. So, though she gave the excuse to Shona that, you know what, you're disturbing us in our studies and don't come here because I'm going to complain to my dad, to my father, but God was watching everything from above, and he was quite aware that what was her actual motive in coming to Tarapada's room, because she wanted to be like a guardian and she was not ready to share Tarapada's time or Tarapada's presence with anyone. And even Tarapada understood that. Poor Shonamuni fumbled for false explanations when Charu venomously means with hatred and with a lot of anger, called her a liar. She withdrew, sick at heart, defeated. The kindly Tarapada would call her and say, "Shona, I'll come to your house this evening." Charu hissed back like a snake with jealousy. "How can you go? What about your lessons?" "I'll tell the teacher." This is how she wanted complete authority over Tarapada. Undaunted by Charu's threat, Tarapada spent a couple of evenings at Bamun Thakaran's house. On the third day, Charu, without further warning, quietly bolted his door and, fetching the padlock from her mother's spice box, locked him in. She kept him prisoner for the whole evening, only opening the door when it was time to eat. In a very childish behavior, in a childish act, what did she do? She locked Tarapada one day because every evening, consecutively, he went to Shonamani's house. And on the third day, when Charu found that he was going out somewhere, she locked him. She took the lock from the mother's spice box and she locked him in. And only she opened the door when it was time to eat. Tarapada was angrily silent and was about to go out without eating. Then the passionate, overwrought girl clasped her hands and cried out repeatedly, "I promise you, I cross my heart, that I won't do it again. Please, I beg you, eat before you go." So I cross my heart is like I swear. It's a very childish way to swear. And she tells, "You know what? I'm not going to do it again. I'm sorry for what I've done. Indirectly, please eat. Don't go like this." When even this had no effect, she began to wail, she began to cry, and he was forced to turn back and eat. So we can understand one thing from here, that she was slowly and slowly trying to bring Tarapada and like trap Tarapada with her emotions. And Tarapada also was slowly and slowly getting entrapped. Let's see what happens after this. Would he remain entrapped, or would he go after his free and liberated spirit as he had always been? Would he settle down, or would he remain in one place? Would he, start living with Motilal and Annapurna and, of course, Charu permanently? Or would he continue to be a wanderer as he was always? So let's see. We come to the sixth episode. I know the video is getting long. As I say, please take a break and come back again. And if you think that you're enjoying this video, and if you want such detailed explanations for every lesson, please do not forget to share and subscribe to the channel. Almost 2 years passed like this. Tarapada had never moved himself to anyone for so long. Tarapada has never anchored, means moved means he was never tied with a particular family for so long. Maybe his studies had a hold on him, or maybe he was changing as he grew up, and a stable existence in a comfortable house had more appeal than before. Maybe the beauty of his study companion, even she had been constantly bad tempered, was exerting an unconscious influence. Now they are also growing up. Earlier they were playmates, but now slowly and slowly they are getting into their early teenage. And Tarapada was also growing up, and he also started liking Charushashi in some way. He also started liking Charushashi, and he was also enjoying the comfortable house. He was also starting to enjoy the affection of this family. And not only that, the beauty of his study companion. She was also evolving into a more beautiful girl as she was earlier, compared to that when she was growing, when she was coming to age, she was also evolving into a more beautiful girl. And though she was back tempered, Tarapada could not ignore her beauty, and probably it was exerting an unconscious influence. He didn't realize, but probably it was influencing him in some way or the other. Meanwhile, Charu had reached the age of 11. Motilal had sought out 2 or 3 good marriage offers. Now, those days it was the fashion to get girls married by the time they were 10 or 11, even earlier than that. Now that she had reached marriageable age, he placed a ban on English books and outside visits. So, girls, whenever they were of marriageable age, they were restricted from a lot of things. She kicked up a terrible fuss at these new restrictions. Obviously, she was very angry and she denied all restrictions. Then one day, Annapurna called Motilal and said, "Why search outside for a groom? Tarapada would make a fine husband and your daughter likes him." So, this is what the mother thought, that why not get our daughter married to Tarapada? Even Charu likes him, and Tarapada is such a good boy. He would definitely make a good husband. Motilal was astonished at this suggestion. "That's impossible," he said. "We don't know anything about the family. She's my only daughter." So, obviously, when you get your daughter married to someone, you need to know the background of this boy's family. So, we don't know anything. How can we get her married to Tarapada? I want to marry her well. Some people came from the Zamindar's house at Raidanga to look at the girl. Look at the girl means these are like, marriage proposals. So the girls would dress up and they were made to sit in front of the prospective groom's family. And if they liked her, they would accept the offer. If they did not like her, and of course, there were other terms and conditions, I'm not getting into that. So, this time also, when people came to see her, efforts were made to dress Charu up. She shut herself in her room, refused to come out. So, again, she did not want to get married to anyone else. Motilal Babu begged, rebuked her from outside, but without result. Finally, he had to lie to the delegation from Raidanga that his daughter had suddenly fallen ill. Now, what would the poor father do? When she refused to come out, Motilal told the people that, "Oh, you know what? My daughter has suddenly fallen ill, so now she can't come to meet you people," and could not be seen today. They assumed from this lame excuse that the girl had some kind of defect. So obviously they also left the matter over there. They realized that maybe, the girl is having some defect and that's the reason, she doesn't want to come out. And obviously they did not go ahead with the proposal. Motilal started to reflect that Tarapada was indeed good to look at, good in every outward aspect. He could keep him at home. His only daughter would not have to go to someone else's house. So Motilal now started pondering on these aspects. First of all, Tarapada was very good looking. Second, Tarapada was a very good natured boy. Not only that, he can keep Tarapada at his house. The daughter would not have to go out of the house because, first of all, obviously, she was their only daughter, and as they were very doting parents, they wanted to make them stay with them forever. He realized that his truculent daughter's foibles, truculent is hostile, somebody who's very like bad mannered, ill mannered. So obviously, the girl had a very hostile demeanor, and he also knew the foibles. Foibles that means the flaws in her character, which he and his wife could smile at, would not be received so well by in-laws. Obviously, if you throw tantrums in the in-laws' house like this, every now and then, who would tolerate? So the parents also knew that it's better we keep the daughter with us, because if she goes like this to the in-laws' house, obviously she cannot adjust, and that would obviously create a rift. After lengthy discussion, Motilal and Annapurna sent a man to Tarapada's village to find about his family. The information came that it was poor but high caste. So he came from a high caste family. He's already a Brahmin, we know. But yes, they were not that well to do. They were poor. Motilal then sent a marriage proposal to the boy's mother and brothers. They were well pleased and agreed to it at once. Obviously, Motilal was a zamindar. He was wealthy. He was a good man. So they readily agreed. Back at Kathalia, Motilal and Annapurna discussed the day, hour of the wedding, but the naturally cautious Motilal kept the whole matter secret. He didn't want to tell the thing. Probably he thought that if he, tells it, it can. He did not discuss this matter with everyone, kept it a secret. Probably he thought that if he tells it, if he shares the news with someone, could be that the marriage may not happen. He did not want to share the news of the marriage with anyone because he thought probably that if he tells, could be it can lead to some kind of disruption and maybe the marriage may not happen. Charu, though, could not be restricted. She sometimes burst into Tarapada's room like a cavalry charge, disturbing his studies with crossness, eagerness, or scorn. Crossness is anger. But Charu, we know that she could not be restricted. Every now and then she would enter his room like a cavalry charge, like charging with a lot of force, and she would disturb him, sometimes with scorn, sometimes with anger. Sometimes, detached and independent though he was, he felt a strange stirring in his heart at this, a sort of electrical impulse. So he also had a strange awakening in his heart when Charu did these things. Till now, he had floated lightly and serenely without impediment on time's stream. So all this while, he was like a free bird. He floated and serenely, very peacefully, without any obstacles. Impediment is obstacles and challenges on time's stream. So time stream is like time is compared to a stream, and he just floated on it without any obstacles. Sometimes now he was snared by strange distracting daydreams. So he had strange daydreams sometimes. He would leave his studies, go into Motilal's library, and flick through the pages of the illustrated books. The imaginary world which he mixed with these pictures was much changed, much more high colored than before. So the imaginary world that he had read in his books, they were more vibrant, they were more colorful than before. He could not laugh at Charu's strange behavior quite as he had done in the past. When she was bad, he never thought of beating her now. This deep change, this powerful feeling of attraction was like a new dream. So Tarapada was also slowly and steadily getting attracted, and he was also growing up. Earlier he could beat her very easily, but now when you are becoming physically aware of another person, especially of the opposite gender, you start distancing yourself, and you behave in a different way. That playfulness was gone from the relation. They were no longer playmates. Why? Because they are also evolving in their age and in their feelings. Motilal fixed the wedding for the month of Shravan. Shravan is the month of the during the rainy season, and sent word to Tarapada's mother and brothers, but he did not inform Tarapada himself. He told his Mukhtar in Calcutta to hire a trumpet and drum band. He ordered everything else that he would be needed for the wedding. So he told his Mukhtar is a supervisor, and he made all the preparations. He ordered for a drum, he ordered for a trumpet, he informed Tarapada's parents, family, not the parents, mother and the brother, but he did not inform Tarapada. And meanwhile, at Kurulkata on the Nag family estate, a famous chariot festival was due to be held. So at Kurulkata is a new place, and this was of famous chariot festival that was about to happen. One moonlit evening, Tarapada went to the ghat and saw on the swift flood ride boats with merry-go-rounds and jatra troupe and cargo boats rapidly making for the fair. So when he sees this, the wandering spirit in Tarapada once again gets stirred. An orchestra from Calcutta was practicing loudly as it passed. The jatra troupe was singing to violin accompaniment, shouting out the beats. Boatsmen from lands to the west split the sky with cymbals and thudding drums. Cymbal is a instrument, a percussion instrument. It has a very loud sound. So this was the thing that Tarapada saw and he heard, and he was obviously very interested because we know that he was always very attracted to these Jatra troops. Such excitement! Then clouds from the east covered the moon with their huge black sails, and east wind blew sharply. Cloud after cloud rolled by, the river gushed and swelled, darkness thickened in the swaying riverside trees, frogs croaked, crickets rasped like wood saws. This description, which the author has given, relates to the change in Tarapada's emotions and feelings. It leads to the awakening in Tarapada's soul. Tarapada's soul, which was always a restless wanderer, once again, gets awakened, and the change in nature is symbolic to his internal awakening. To Tarapada, the whole world seemed like a chariot festival. Wheels turning, flags flying, earth trembling, clouds swirling, wind rushing, river flowing, boats sailing, songs rising. So the whole world seemed to be like a festival to Tarapada. He could see and experience it deep down in his heart and soul. There were rumbles of thunder, slashes of lightning in the sky. The smell of torrential rain approached from the dark distance. But Kathalia village next to the river ignored all this. She shut her doors and turned out her lamps and went to sleep. But the Kathalia village, where Motilal lived, they were not aware of this. They kept themselves away. They were untouched by whatever was going on in Tarapada's heart and mind. Whatever the author has described in terms of nature, as I say, and I repeat, that is also relates to Tarapada's change once again, how he slowly and steadily gets attracted to the life that he was leading before he comes in contact with Motilal's family. The following morning, Tarapada's mother and brothers arrived at Kathalia. That same morning, three large boats from Calcutta, laden with things for the wedding, moved at the Zamindar's ghat, and very early that same morning, Shonamani brought some mango juice preserved in the paper and some pickle wrapped in a leaf and timidly stood outside Tarapada's room. But Tarapada was not to be seen. So the next morning, when Tarapada's family comes, same morning, three large boats from Calcutta, laden with things for the wedding, moved at the ghat. So all the wedding preparations were ready. And that same morning, Shonamani also brought some mango pickle, some mango juice for Tarapada, and she was standing outside timidly outside his room. But Tarapada was not there. Because why? Because he has already left the place. Like a restless wanderer, he continued to follow the life that he always wanted to live. In a cloudy monsoon night, before love and emotional ties could encircle him completely, this Brahmin boy, thief of all hearts in the village, had returned to the unconstraining, unemotional arms of his mother earth. So the restless Tarapada continues to be the same liberated spirit, the same liberated soul that he was always, and he continued to live in that way. So he does not want to be tied down with any kind of emotions and relations. He distanced himself with all kinds of emotional ties, and he doesn't want to settle or anchor particularly with anyone. So this is how Tarapada is an Atithi. Atithi means a guest who comes to stay with you for a temporary period of time. So Tarapada is also an Atithi, a guest in everybody's life. He comes, stays with them, exerts his influence in a good way, and spreads the goodness of his soul around him, touches everybody's lives in the most affectionate way. But at the end, he leaves and goes in his own way. He doesn't stay with anyone permanently. And that's how he's an Atithi. Okay, so that's all in the video, and I hope you have enjoyed line by line explanation. Please share and support the channel and share this video with at least one of your friends. Thank you and have a beautiful day ahead.